So if we want to create a new Pandas data frame, we can do so in one of two ways. We could create a brand new data frame and then build up the data frame manually, and sometimes you might want to do that. Or you can read in existing data from a CSV file and dump it straight into a Pandas data frame. Now, 99% of the time, for the sort of thing you will be doing, you will likely be doing the latter. There will be times during the training where you won't do that and you will create a little manual one. But most of the time, for the situations where Pandas really comes into its own, you will be reading in a CSV file and turning it into a Pandas data frame. So we're going to focus primarily on that. And the good news is that's incredibly easy to do. And I did mention this morning that when we were looking at opening CSV files and you were reading things manually into lists, how much easier it is to read it into a Pandas data frame. And that's because Pandas has a really nice little function that will automatically read in the CSV file and dump it into a nicely formatted data frame with all of the column headers intact as the column headers in the Pandas data frame. And it does all this in one line of code. And if you don't believe me, here you go. This is a CSV file, input data.csv, much as we had earlier. This is the one line of code that will turn that into that. And now suddenly you've got a Pandas data frame, which has got all the nice column headings and it's all correctly formatted. So what we're doing here is we're calling the read CSV method of Pandas, and we simply pass in the name of the file, and that's it. And that will store it into a data frame, which I've just called DF. As a common abbreviation we use for Pandas data frames, but obviously I can call it anything I like. You'll also notice though here that we've got an extra column of numbers at the start. Now this is known as the index column. And whenever you create a new Pandas data frame, it will automatically get added this extra column that wasn't there in the original data. And that's because just like a database, and a number of you used SQL, used to using databases, you will know that in a database you have to have a unique identifier for every entry so that you can reference a particular record by that unique identifier. Pandas is the same. You have to have a unique identifier, and so it includes its own by default, and basically it just starts a count from 0 and counts up from there, and that it calls that the index. And in some cases that's fine. That's all you need to use. But it might be that in your data you've already got something that would work as a unique identifier and would be better placed as the index, because then you could refer to it. So patient ID might be a really good example of a unique identifier. Now, you need to be very careful that your column does genuinely have unique values. If it doesn't, Pandas will check and it will fall over if you don't have unique values. And you might, although patient identifier might be unique, bear in mind the data you're reading in might have multiple entries for that unique identifier. So you need to make sure for every row there is a unique identifier if you're going to use something within your data. But assuming for the moment that in our data here, patient ID is a unique identifier for each row, then let's say we want to use that now as our Pandas data frame index. When we read it in, we can actually pass in this argument here to say index col equals, and then give it the name of the index column, and that will be whatever is in the header. Okay, so that's what Pandas will use as the column names by default. But as I say, we'll check, so do be careful, and you will run into problems if you've got multiple entries there.